1,000 vaccinated fans will attend the FA Cup final in May as part of a series of pilot events. Fans here are looking on in envy. In Tallaght tonight, the Irish women played behind closed doors. Some fans were outside.
We've come to every home game for the last 6 years or so.
So how do they feel about vaccine certs?
A good idea, but then it's unfair, say, for the kids. They're not going to be vaccinated to the very end. So I'm not going to come over for a game when I'm vaccinated and leave them at home.
Shamrock Rovers also celebrated their league win last year in an almost empty Tallaght stadium.
We'd no fans to see us win the league, our 18th league title. That's heartbreaking.
Realistically, do you think Rovers fans will be back in here this season?
Yeah, I would hope so. We can take 8,000 in the stadium. I'd love to see 8,000. I don't suspect we will, but we'll get as many as we're allowed in. If vaccination approval needs to be in place, well, that's the way it'll have to be.
Vaccine certificates could also be used at music and arts events, but would it be in effect making vaccines mandatory?
There are many, many people who don't want to take the vaccine for all sorts of good reasons. There is tremendous coercion, and I think that those of us who are not taking it are being vilified, and we're seen as dangerous to other people.
Personally, I'm definitely pro-vaccination. I'm science background, so I think, yeah, it's makes sense.
It's everyone for themselves. That's being quite honest with you. Get the bloody jab.
There would definitely be like a little bit of an outrage or anger of everyone if some people could go out and other people couldn't, but I hope everyone can get vaccinated so everyone can go out.
Artists are as keen as fans to get back to live gigs.
Maliki here, what's going on, guys? I hope everyone's safe and well.
Maliki is among the musicians announcing tour dates. The musician is booked to play Cypress Avenue in Cork, but is desperate to welcome fans back.
We're basically just acting like, floundering around in the dark, being busy doing nothing, scheduling, booking gigs and rebooking them again, and putting in new dates again. That's what we're doing.
So far this year, the only gigs at Cypress Avenue have been to an empty room and an online audience. So could fans returning to live gigs depend on a vaccination certificate?
It's better than nothing, and yes, it is, I would assume. It's a medical question, but yes, from what we understand, it would appear as if it's possible, yes. And if that's all we get to, then that's better than nothing. And if they say to us we can only have people aged 40 and up or whatever, with a vaccine passport or with whatever they say, with proof that they've been vaccinated, if that's safe. Once it's safe, yes, we are very, very happy to do that.
You might have some disappointed younger fans for a while, Ger, given the vaccine rollout plan.
Absolutely, yes. Unfortunately, you're right. We need a roadmap. We don't need any more sound bites. We've done a big investment here. We've expanded enormously. We just finished it. We put top quality equipment in, and now we can't wait and win it. And we're just waiting all the time.
Let's delve a little further into some of the issues there. Liam, this seems like a good idea, but I understand you're not exactly crazy about it. What is the problem with these kind of passports?
I think specifically, Fran, with regard to digital certificates for access to goods and services within the state, you're essentially introducing a two-tier society. It's going to be a discrimination against people who either can't take the vaccine because of medical reasons, who are concerned about the vaccine, or for the vast majority of our population, people who haven't been offered the vaccine yet. And we have to remember about looking at COVID as an act of social solidarity and intergenerational solidarity. For the last year, our whole society has made enormous sacrifices of their lives, of their rights, of their businesses to the common good. And in particular, younger people have made sacrifices to protect the more vulnerable in society. To turn around at this stage and have a discrimination against those who can't get the vaccine, and that is the vast majority of the younger population, I think would undermine that solidarity. Apart at all from that, though, there's issues of discrimination, there's issues of data protection, there's issues of interference with bodily integrity, and I think the legal and rights obstacles are going to make this unworkable. And we think really the government should not go down the road of what is an unwelcome distraction at this point in time.
On hearing that, and considering and hearing from industry there in our report, how important could these passports be?
This is the scenario that the industry I cover is being presented with. This may be the only show in town to get something out of summer 2021. What happens beyond that is going to be a different story. But internationally, we've already seen the cruise industry saying nobody's getting on board a ship without vaccination, and the aviation industry, that initiative that they have about the green passport, it still has to go through the member states, but that is being rolled out. It's not really that somebody's starting with this notion that we're only going to have an elite who are allowed in. They're looking for ways out of a desperate situation, and something that gives a digital indication that someone is vaccinated or is clear of COVID is all that is on offer. That's really there aren't that many alternatives being presented in the short term.
Liam, what about that? If it's being done elsewhere, is there a point that we come to where we say, despite concerns, we have to get the country moving, we have to get people back to normal, and we just set aside some of those concerns? Is that not reasonable?
I think it's really important that we've been all in this together and we come out of it together. There is a roadmap, of course, for opening up the economy and society. We're seeing a lot of success this week with the vaccine rollout. And I think our priorities need to be to do the vaccine rollout in a fair and equitable way.
Right, but if we do that, how long will it be until we all come out together?
Well, I think we're looking at over the next number of months. But I think whereas there's a superficial appeal to some businesses to open up more quickly, if you look at what this means in practice, would it mean, for example, pubs or restaurants asking people about their health status, looking for verification of that, and would the onus and liability then shift to those private sector providers to prove that those people have had vaccines?
Just a few months on, that's all we have to wait.
Well, it can all happen very quickly. I mean, the way the numbers are working, 150 is the new metric internationally. Ireland is sitting under that tonight. The Northern Ireland's under 100. If you look at the map that was released by the ECDC today, we're there with the Azores, the Balearics, with Scandinavia, right at the right end of the chart. So all the things that are going to be factors in us opening up are all moving the right direction, and this is just an extra one. But it's really important that if there's sort of this technological move internationally to get this in play, it's really important we move with the rest of Europe and we don't drag our heels.
But what about the realities? Let's say there is a passport and restaurants can open. What about the staff in those restaurants? What about the staff in music venues? Don't we create further vaccination pressures for ourselves?
In terms of the staff being asked to be vaccinated, that's already happening within the health service. I mean, the student nurse situation is quite a confrontational issue in the last couple of days. It's going to create these little difficulties, these bubbles and all of that. But remember, the private sector is not the HSE, and they're already in the job of policing safety, hotel premises, a pub. They're already in the business of protecting the health of their staff and also vetting anyone who comes in that could be a threat to the running of the business and the safety of all their customers. It's not that big a leap, and I do appreciate Liam's concerns because we're going into human rights areas that really we shouldn't be going into with this, but there aren't that many other ways that we can get this up and running without breaching in the short term some of those inherent rights.
I'm just thinking, Liam, about people who've been locked up at home and who are vaccinated and would like to get out. People who have businesses who'd like to get going again. What's so wrong with saying we'll do it piecemeal, we'll start opening?
Because the question of safety and a safe opening up is much more complicated than reducing it to the simple question of technological vaccine certificate. And we have to remember that our whole system of public health and vaccines in Ireland is based on the principle of voluntary and consent.
But there is another principle that already some people can meet up if they're fully vaccinated, older people, for example. So we're starting to cede ground, so why not continue?
What we're seeing is very sensible and compassionate and relaxing, where two people who've been vaccinated can meet in private. But what we're not doing at the moment is bringing in a whole level of verification, discrimination in the private sector. And I think that would be the wrong road to go down. We need to make sure that we're actually investing in what's the priority. And the priority at the moment is getting the vaccine out there in a fair and quick way, and crucially, maintaining public trust and confidence in the vaccine programme. If we start forcing people into taking vaccines, we actually risk undermining the public health message.
And this is really important, that it's an inclusive measure. It's not being brought in to exclude people. Obviously, because the the pace of vaccination rollout will decide how many people are included, but the principle has to be that everyone is being included. It's not being introduced to sort of keep somebody out because they're seen as a danger to the rest.
Okay, Eoghan Liam, thanks for coming in to us this evening. We're going to go back to our reporter Louise Byrne. Louise, I understand you have been speaking to your contacts this evening and you have some more information about government's thinking on how they're going to approach this issue.
Yeah, Fran, so I suppose the first thing to say is that digital vaccine certificates are coming. The question that government is considering now is what we use them for. So at the moment there is a working group in the Department of the Taoiseach and they're pulling together the different proposals that fully vaccinated people could be able to do. And my understanding tonight, what I'm hearing tonight, is that sport is in the mix. It's on the table in terms of those considerations, which is great news for those of us dying to get back into stadiums like the Aviva and in Tala, like we saw a little bit earlier on. In terms of culture and gigs and music, it's a bit more complicated, particularly for indoors. What I'm hearing is that they're looking at other jurisdictions. They're looking at, say, in Israel, there was a very big outdoor gig recently for those who are vaccinated, and they're keeping a close eye on the outcome of that. But in terms of sport, the IRFU, the FAI, the GAA are actually working together on proposals to get fans back into stadiums. They've been doing that for since last year, in fact. And today, the GAA outlined its fixture list for the rest of the year for inter-county. And we've heard that the men's All-Ireland finals will be in August in Croke Park. And what I'm told tonight is that the GAA is hoping to have crowds in Croke Park for those two finals. There's nothing definitive, nothing on the table just yet, but that is the ambition and that's the incentive that these vaccine certificates can provide. What the government has to consider, though, is, as you've been hearing there, the issues that it raises around who is excluded and how fair can that system actually be.
Well, perhaps some good news on the way for sports fans. Louise, thank you for that. Maureen.